You may have heard about this marriage-related book and workshop for men from someone you know, and now you're seeing this video, and if you're like most, you're either a bit skeptical or you're beginning to develop some expectations about who's leading this and about their credentials. I'll bet they're an experienced marriage counselor, or at least this guy will be a pastor with a theology degree. Well, allow me to take a minute to lower your expectations. The bad news, I'm neither of those things. The good news, I hope, is that I'm neither of those things. Instead, I'm a 37-year seasoned, scarred veteran of marriage to my wife, Devaney, and I am as flawed and imperfect as any man you may have tripped across when you went looking for help with your marriage. In fact, I recall going to Devaney in 2004 and suggesting that she and I help mentor other couples because I felt our marriage was better than most. She was reluctant, but agreed to at least explore the possibility. And when we approached our church, North Point Community Church here in the Atlanta area, they had the audacity to require us to go through a 13-week study to ensure we were healthy and strong enough as a couple to help other marriages. It's still fresh in my memory going to the third meeting and sitting around a table with 4 other couples, including the table leaders, as Devaney, with tears in her eyes, asked the group, "Is it possible our marriage could actually get worse in this process, not better?" You talk about a wake-up call. In retrospect, it was the first time, 20 plus years into our marriage, that we had taken the time to peel back the onion on the hurts I had caused her because of my overzealous workaholic tendencies when I was overinvested in my work and career and underinvested in our relationship. And as you may have guessed already, I had just as much disdain for her disdain as I pleaded, "You think I'm working this hard for my own good? I do this for you and for our family," which in hindsight was mostly a rationalization, of course. All of that to say that this wake-up call was the beginning of a journey for us, and for me in particular, as I endeavored to understand what I was missing, and perhaps most importantly, to better understand how to love Devaney in a way that God intended. Through that challenging season of my life and marriage, God birthed a passion and a zealousness for marriage in me that I had never experienced. I voraciously read every book known to man and listened to most of the notable speakers and pastors on the topic with a selfish desire to better understand all I could about marriage, including wrestling with the paradox of why the marriage relationship tends to be so hard for many men. And I'm the prototypical example. I tend to get along with most everyone in my life, co-workers, neighbors, friends, relatives, you name it. The reality is that while my marriage is the most special and sacred relationship in my life, it has also been the hardest relationship in my entire life. And it's not difficult because I have a flawed wife. On the contrary. Why then do we men tend to struggle so much in our marriage relationship? The real reason, it's challenging because of how God designed and uses our marriage to show us how we're doing in becoming the Christ-like man that He designed for you and I to be. Said differently, my marriage is hard because God has used Devaney in a sacred and strategic way to shine a light on my innate selfishness and pride that no other person could possibly expose. In fact, Devaney is the only person in my entire life that knows me fully, from the good to the depth of my depravity, all of which is by God's masterful design. In addition to my own personal journey in marriage, I've also had the privilege of walking with a few hundred men since 2012 in a small group workshop format to wrestle with God's design for marriage and our role as husbands in all of this. It's now obvious to me that this common struggle is evidence of how important the marriage relationship is in God's economy. I've ventured to capture the essence of what I've learned through this process in this short, bite-sized book that I hope will profoundly impact any man who aspires to experience an abundant marriage that God designed for all of us. Let me highlight a few of the insights and principles that we've captured in these resources. First, it's demoralizing to see what's happening in today's culture related to marriage. 50 years ago, more than 70% of adults were married, and divorce occurred with a small minority of couples. Today, less than 50% of adults are married, and that rate continues to fall. While divorce is still common, the epidemic is most pronounced in marriages of 25 years or more. In essence, these are the empty nest couples whose children are grown and gone, and then they starkly realize that they have so little in common and a lot of long-held resentment that's become a wall between them that they can't seem to scale. Even more troubling, far too many marriages, including Christian marriages, are self-professed mediocre. Yes, you're still married, but the joy is gone. The intimacy is infrequent, and the communications that occurs between spouses is surface level and practical, not deep and meaningful. God didn't design our marriages to be mediocre. In John 10:10, Jesus says he came to give us life so that we can have it to the full or abundantly, as it says in other translations. I believe Jesus desires us to have life and marriage abundantly. I used to believe that if a marriage was struggling, the one most impactful way to make it more abundant required that the couple find a good Christian counselor to help them unpack the issues and help them learn to love each other all over again. A pastor, author, and God-ordained man named Ken Nair, who wrote the book Discovering the Mind of a Woman, single-handedly changed my perspective entirely. Today, I'm convinced that because of God's design for husbands and wives in a Christ-centered marriage, men have the ability to transform their marriages, starting with us. And here's the crazy part. Even if your wife is far less interested. And finally, I aspire to help Christian husbands to realize that God's will for our lives is to become more Christ-like and to embrace the notion that your marriage is designed, unlike any other relationship in your life, to provide you a full-length mirror to show you how you're doing on that path. When we make progress on the path to Christ-likeness, not only are we drawn closer to God in the process, but God has also designed your wife to be profoundly impacted by your progress. It's in this journey that you'll realize and experience how abundance in marriage compares to mediocrity. I pray these resources will be useful, and I always welcome your feedback and ideas. At a minimum, I hope you'll read the free book and use the corresponding study guide we provide on our website, menyourmarriagematters.com. Perhaps you'll also be able to join us for one of our upcoming Atlanta area small group workshops, and you can register for these on the website as well. Or better yet, use these resources in your own small group to help men in your circle of influence to draw closer to God and to transform their marriages in the process. It may be the most profound gift you can give to them, to their wives, and to their children for that matter. May God bless your journey.